Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? All right, so there's a lot of confusion about whether these banks in Iraq are on sanctions and how it's affecting the exchange rate. So I found an article we can go over. They do in detail explain how this affects what's going on over there in the banks and Iraq's exchange rate. All right, let's get into this. Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. You can follow me over on other platforms. I do have my own group over on Facebook called Pimpy's Investment Chat. Over here, we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currency investments. So head on over here and join us. It's free to do so. In here, I do post updates. If I should get on suspension from YouTube or get removed from YouTube and you want to know what happened to me, I'll let you know right here in this group. I can be found on Twitter, MeWe, YouTube, and the cool thing about YouTube, if you come over here and you join and you find my channel, I got videos going back, I believe, a couple years. So if you want to see some older videos that I have on Nasera, Jacera, gold, silver, cryptos, come on over here and join. Look me up and check out my videos. You can also find me on Odyssey. Catch me on Rumble. When I say that the links for all these are down below in the description, some of you don't know what I'm talking about. It's real simple. Just go down to the bottom right here of any of my videos. See this? This is the description. Hit show more. And there are all the links to all the platforms I just spoke about. Alrighty, I missed this one when it first came out, but look at Iraq to end all dollar cash withdrawals by January 1st of 2024. So we should see how this affects the value of the Iraqi Dinar. I was saying I have a feeling come 2024, we're going to start seeing those increments happen. They're not going to be large, but at least they're going to be heading in the right direction. Stopping the use of the US dollar is a major step towards strengthening the Iraqi Dinar. All right, here we go. The reality of US sanctions on Iraqi banks. Since concern has been mounting in Iraq in the wake of the U.S. announcement that it has banned 14 Iraqi banks from conducting dollar transactions due to strong suspicions regarding ciphering dollars to Iran, which is under American economic and financial sanctions. This announcement led to a rise in the dollar exchange rate in Iraq's parallel markets, the informal market not under the government's control. This exchange rate reached 1,550 dinars for every dollar. While it was about 1,445, the official rate, of course, being 1,320 dinars for every dollar. Washington's action opened the door for speculation about more political confrontations between the U.S. and pro-Iran influential Shia Iraqi factions, which are usually accused of standing behind smuggling dollars to Iran by using some banks as fronts. See, this is the thing that I was talking about. As long as Maliki and his people are there, they're backed by Iran, they work with Iran, and Iran's supposed to be under sanctions. This is one of the big reasons why Iraq hasn't, in the past 20 plus years, been able to have control of their currencies and make financial decisions without approval of the United States. Because you're dealing with people in politics that are corrupt and are violating the rules set by the United States. Such a confrontation will weaken the Sudani government, which is eager to appease Washington, gain its cooperation, and try to square Iraqi's fragile stability from the impact of the U.S.-Iran conflict. However, announcing these sanctions might be an unintendable bubble to embrace these factions and the government amid a delicate and highly tense internal political situation, even as there's no confrontation yet about declaring American sanctions against these banks. So here's the thing. I've seen articles where they say these banks are under sanctions, but if you go to the official website, they're not listed there. So it's like a gray area. They're under sanctions, but they're not officially under sanctions. It's like putting them in timeout is what it is. Several issues can be noticed regarding the American sanctions against the Iraqi banks. First, there was no announcement about the sanctions from any official party, the U.S. Treasury, or the Federal Reserve. There is also no mention of such sanctions on the official website of both institutions. However, the Wall Street Journal, citing unnamed American officials, said that the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve have banned 14 Iraqi banks from conducting dollar transactions. English and Arabic news sources use this report without referring to other official sources. Second, there was no denial, confirmation, or comment by an official source on this report. In his daily press briefing on July 24, 2023, 5 days after the Wall Street reported, the United States Department spokesperson, Matthew Miller, was asked about the sanctions and why Washington has no official statement. "I don't have any further comment," Miller said. Third, the Central Bank of Iraq confirmed imposing sanctions against these banks after the Wall Street Journal report, rapidly stirring controversy in Iraq's political and media circles. CBI stated to clarify the mechanisms used to impose these sanctions. Notably, the statement did not use the terms sanctions in the leaked Wall Street Journal report. Instead, it used the phrases banning Iraqi banks from conducting dollar transactions. This is an accurate account of what has happened. In other words, the ban is temporary, and lifting it is connected to these banks' ability to meet the required conditions to conduct dollar transactions supervised by the Central Bank of Iraq. The most critical thing the CBI statement is that it gives relatively detailed information that seems accurate regarding the ban, which can end confusion on this issue. CBI added that the ban came after the audit about the bank's transfers last year for 2022, before applying the online platform and also before forming the current government. So what does this mean? The violations that led to the ban are old, but their announcement was recent. Moreover, sanctions were imposed by applying the old mechanisms before applying the American online measures last November. This online platform has canceled the need for the Central Bank of Iraq's audit of Iraq's banks, conducting dollar transactions to ensure they have met the required participation conditions. According to the old mechanisms, CBI and private monitoring company used to run routine audits of documents and procedures, followed by Iraqi banks taking part in the foreign currency sell window after, not before, executing the financial charges. This window is the CBI supervised institutional agreement in cooperation with the Federal Reserve. As per this arrangement, these Iraqi banks can get dollars after applying to buy products and goods in U.S. dollars. See how the U.S. makes sure that their dollars are being used? So if you're trying to get away from the dollar, I wonder how that's going to affect the so-called dollar ban. Accordingly, and after the Federal Reserve's approval, these banks received the necessary amounts of dollars through CBI in exchange for their equivalent amount in Iraqi Dinar. After these transfers, CBI and specialized company run routine audits to check the accuracy of the information and documents provided by participating banks, including purchase receipts. If these audits show any mistakes or violations, the CBI will issue warnings, fines, and penalties against the banks in violation based on the magnitude and severity. In the wake of Washington's requirements to use the new platform for conducting dollar transactions in November of 2022, there was no need to use the old auditing mechanisms. So see, this is the new banking reform that they implemented in the banks over the last couple of years, was the type of software that could really monitor what these people are doing. Because remember, everything in Iraq's old school. They do a lot of it by paper, so it makes it real easy to steal. So with the new software that was installed, obviously it makes it a little bit tougher for them to steal money or to siphon it off and give it to Iran. The new platform quickly checks the documents and information provided by the participating bank, not through the CBI. The platform accepts transactions meeting requirements and rejects transactions with violations. After using the online platform, the United States does not need to declare sanctions against the banks. The platform itself is responsible for punishing violating banks by denying them the ability to obtain U.S. dollars, automatic blocking via the platform. Wow, now, that's a really slick way to deny banks access to dollars by not personally doing it yourself, but the software does it for you. Washington routinely sanctions banks through the United States Treasury Department based on specific charges such as supporting terrorism, money laundering, or transferring money to U.S. sanctioned entities such as Iran and Russia. There was a case of Al Islamic Bank in Iraq, sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department in 2012 over its dealings with the Iranian bank already sanctioned by Washington. The U.S. Treasury Department lifted the sanctions on this bank a year later after the bank complied with U.S. financial instructions. After establishing the online platform November the 14th, banks were automatically excluded from using the currency sale windows. So only banks sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department cannot use the currency selling windows unless the U.S. Treasury decides to lift these sanctions. Accordingly, as long as the U.S. Treasury did not issue official sanctions against the 14 Iraqi banks, these banks can fix the violations cited by the CBI statement to be able to use the currency sale window to exchange funds. Most likely, these banks will not do this because they are already involved in illegal financial transactions to transfer funds to entities subject to U.S. sanctions. So there you have it, right there. This has been some of the other ongoing problems with Iraq. They have the ability to get themselves out of trouble with the U.S. by doing certain things, but since they're so deep in corruption, they prefer not. So what this article is saying is those 14 banks do illegal crap, and nobody put them on sanctions. All they have to do is fall in line and follow the rules. Will they do it? No, they won't do it because they're already elbow deep in corruption. Apart from these technical details associated with the alleged sanctions against these banks, there is a political aspect related to leaking of the news of the imposition of sanctions that are neither official nor confirmed by the United States against the Iraqi banks. This information leakage put the Iraqi government in an embarrassing situation. It demonstrated the government's inability to impose the rule of law on banks that many Iraqis accuse as financial fronts for pro-Iran Iraqi militia and political groups serving Iranian interests at the expense of the Iraqi interests. That was the case even though these violations were committed before the information of the Sudanese government at the end of last year. So we used to have a box that had software on your computers when we were working, and it would check your work for you. And what it did is it would point out all the errors that you made so you could become more efficient. We used to call it a snitch box because if you got too many violations, you can get written up for it. But yeah, I had no problem with it. But if you're new to doing what we did, if you made too many errors, if you were used to doing it the old way and it conflicted with the new way, you would see a lot of people inadvertently continue to get in trouble. So yeah, it was called a snitch box. So this software apparently is another version of a snitch box. So why did the American side leak the news of these sanctions? There are two close possibilities in this regard. The first is the information leak was not intended and happened by chance in the context of an attempt by the U.S. official to prove to a reputable newspaper that the United States is making all required efforts to combat money laundering to Iran within the framework of applying U.S. sanctions on Tehran. In other words, the leak was just meant to demonstrate general U.S. seriousness about applying its sanctions to pressure the Islamic Republic into signing an interim nuclear agreement that has been discussed extensively in recent weeks. In this sense, the leak had nothing to do with Iraq, with no intended political messages directed at the Iraqi government or coordination framework, the parliamentary bloc dominating it. The second possibility is the information leak was deliberate to show Washington insists on continuing its pressure on Iran, sending messages to Iran, the U.S. political public, and U.S. allies in the region, concerned about the apparent U.S. complicity towards Iran. However, the reaction to the leak were adverse and unexpected, as it embarrassed the Iraqi government, which is supposed to be Washington's ally, because the leak showed that the government's weakness and inability to implement a promised reform in the financial and banking sector. The American side's silence in this regard and not denying or confirming the leak's authenticity reflects on Americans' desire to contain the repercussions of this issue politically and mitigate the embarrassment to which the Sudanese government was exposed. In Iraq, the American leak, despite the CBI's quick efforts to contain its adverse effects in vain, added more trouble to the Sudanese government, as it led to a rise in the price of the U.S. dollar against the Iraqi dinar, when the government has been trying for months to control the exchange rate in the information market and make it identical or very close to the price of the official market. These problems began with the central bank's decision last February, backed by the government, to change its official Iraqi dinar exchange rate against the dollar from 1,450 dinars to 1,320. It was hoped that the U.S. dollar devaluation against the Iraqi dinar would contribute to helping the poorest groups by lowering the prices of imported essential consumer goods and curbing the inflation. Thus, the Sudanese government was expected to gain some popularity, especially amongst the population group that were the main driver of the enormous popular protests in 2019 through 2020, as the government fears the possible repetition of these uprisings. However, the continued rise in the dollar exchange rate in the informal market, or what the Iraqis call the parallel market, prevent the translation of the exchange rate change into a tangible benefit for the poor. Politically, the government's failure to control the exchange rate has led to widespread and persistent criticism that it is powerless, lacking a valuable plan. So their conclusion is, apart from the dollar exchange rate problem associated with the complex supply and demand economy, excluding the 14 Iraqi banks from using the currency window is a positive development, whether due to an official U.S. sanction or Iraqi administration sanctions, or an unclear mixture of the two so far. The exclusion confirms the possibility of controlling the currency sale window in Iraq, especially after establishing the online platform, which can prevent suspicious banking transactions more effectively and quickly. Consequently, this can significantly reduce the likelihood of political interference in such banking operations in favor of smuggling operations that benefit Iran at the expense of legitimate Iraqi interests. So obviously the type of software that they put in there that does the auditing on behalf of the Central Bank of Iraq was probably one of the best moves that Iraq could have done. It's like a snitch box. The funny thing is it applies its own penalties to these banks without involving the Iraqi government or the United States. It does it on its own. This is exactly what Iraq needs. First of all, the first little article, the beginning of January, there will be no more use of the US dollar. That should be a major plus for the Iraqi dinar. It shouldn't take very long after that, and we should start seeing some increases in the Iraqi dinar exchange rate. Now, people have asked me, do you expect any changes in 2024? Yes. Nothing in 2023, though. But 2024, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm anticipating a couple of changes. Like I said, over the next couple of years, I'm expecting to see the Iraqi dinar start to take steps towards increasing its exchange rate little by little. At least it's going in the right direction. Anyways, that's it for now. You guys let me know what you think. I'll get back at you later. I'm out.